So I'm going to put the link in the chat, and this is from our resource folder, which everybody can access. And give me a second here, and I'll get the slideshow going.
There it is. Thank you, Chris.
Okay, we're ready to go.
Yeah, some introductions. Would you like to start, Chris?
Sure. My name is Chris Miraglia. I'm a part-time supervisor at UC Irvine, and I supervise the single subject history social science candidates. And Johnny and I have been doing some collaborative work for 2 years, which he'll talk more about.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. So I'm Johnnie Wilson. I have been a lecturer and teacher supervisor at UC Santa Cruz. I also do a lot of math work too with California Math Project and such. So lots of interests, but also have been a part of STENT since the beginning and wonderful, wonderful people in the core team. And so glad to see this community flourishing and growing. So glad that you're all here. So we'll go on to the next slide. And this is going to ask you a little bit. So if you could please introduce yourself in chat. I know you've been doing this a bit, but I'm going to ask you one more thing to do. First, share what university you represent and what position you hold. And then share a good place you have visited this summer. And I'll share right now. My son is with me, and we took a trip to Mobile, Alabama, and he was very, very happy to have some catfish. So that's what we've done in the last few days. So if you could share some interesting good place you've been in the chat, as well as who you are and where you've been, that would be great. Thank you. Private tour of Hearst Castle. We, in the math folks, we have a great conference at Asilomar by the same architect at the Asilomar Conference Ground. Always impressed. And I have family near Carmel. Carmel's beautiful. Some folks have been to Hawaii. Oh, some people have made trips all the way across the sea, England, Wales, and Scotland. Baseball Hall of Fame. Day trip to Big Bear. Inca Trail in Peru. That may be the furthest so far. 5 different families in one cabin. I expect you all get along pretty well. More Kauai folks. And my son teaches piano in Pacific Grove, so I'm glad to see people have gone to that place as well. So shall we start, Chris? Shall we go to the next slide?
Mm-hmm.
Carmel Valley, Carmel 2.
Okay. So first of all, I'd like to say whoever went to the Baseball Hall of Fame, that's been one of my trips I want to go on. So I'm a big baseball history junkie. All right, so this is what we're going to accomplish for this presentation. Our goal is to look at how AI is incorporated into our supervisorial work. And so we did our introductions, and we're going to take a look at how did we get here? How did this presentation actually originate? And we're going to do a chat share and see how you've used AI, if you have at all, which is fine if you haven't. We're going to look at some actual examples of how we've utilized AI in supervision and observations, feedback, and lesson planning. And we're also going to take a look at some of Johnny's work as building a TPE continuum using AI. We'll have a question and answers. We'll also have a work session incorporated in various parts of the presentation as well.
Thank you, Chris. So how did we get here? I appreciate many of you were in the session yesterday when I was sharing the STENT PLC, the work that we've been doing. Chris has been a major part of this over the last 2 years. And the STENT PLC met every other week. Questions inquiry was made by peers, and we investigated many, many rich and interesting topics. I shared some of that yesterday. But Chris, earlier this year, introduced questions about AI and some of the work he's been doing with his observation tools in relation to feedback, in relation to TPE markup and such. And so we've been doing this for some time. And then on April, we started thinking about, I shared this notion about thinking about the TPE continuum as well. So this fall, we're continuing this conversation on the use of AI, but I expect many of you are going to have this conversation with your peers. And to be honest, I think Chris and I are just explorers, just wanting to know how things work and always asking questions about our work and like how it might be made better. And this is an interesting tool, and we're going to set it out things we're thinking about, but we're also going to ask you to think about its relevance, but you're also welcome to be critical as well. And we're going to give you some space for that as well. Chris will talk about that in a little bit as well. So thank you, Chris.
Mhm.
So if you could share in chat right now, where have you seen AI used in your supervisorial work? And it's okay to say how much you've had, how much experience you've had with AI. You can say quite a bit, not much, haven't touched it, any of those things. And, Chris and I are being good teachers. We're doing a check for understanding right on, so we'll know where we are with our presentation here. So if you could share in chat right now, that would be great. And while you're writing here, I'll just share that I have another brother who's an English teacher in Oregon who I visited this year too, and he's having an interesting teaching life with AI right now. And he's very good at spotting things that don't look quite right. They are working on tools to see how they could, reasonably incorporate AI into writing, but not to replace learning to write. So lots of things coming up for my brother and as an English teacher. Thank you for sharing. And some people in math have probably used Khanmiga. There's some tools out there that are incorporating AI into instructional models in their tech models for teaching. And one thought out there, we're not going to touch this session, but it has been on the back of my mind. Where does AI fit in lesson planning? And that may be something that you may want to explore with your peers at your sites. Um, you know, a framework for developing lesson plans that's aided by AI might be something worthwhile. A lot of teachers are doing that in their own practice now. Thank you so much for sharing. Should we go to the next one, Chris?
Yes. So some of the questions we consider is how we go about using AI. Uh, there's a lot of things to consider as far as the workload. With supervisors, we are putting a lot of inputting a lot of data. But then we have to take a look at, are we using AI to guide our candidates as they are developing as educators? So it comes down to, we're doing to get the work done? And I can speak from my experience. Yes, I am, because I find that AI can actually help me uh, put together reports if I'm looking at a particular candidate and trends. And I also share how the candidates can utilize AI in their lesson planning as well. And some of them have already been exposed to it. But these are just some of the questions. By no means there's a limitation here, because obviously there's the ethical questions and a lot of other questions that come up. And as Johnnie prefaced our presentation, neither one of us are experts. We're playing in the sandbox. And as we play in the sandbox, we learn a little more each time. So one of the things that when we take a look at AI, and this comes from Matt Miller, who's well known in the K-12 education uh, stratosphere, or environment, talks about, what is AI, what can it do, and what can it do, and how does it, um, are we better with it? And these are conversations that we actually had in our STENT PLC. Like, what is the purpose of it, and why are we using it? What can it do? And we're finding out, and as anybody that's experimented with it, there's certain things it cannot do. It cannot replicate the person-to-person interaction that we have with our candidates. But there's things that it can do, and as I found from my experience, um, it's able to make my job more efficient, but I have to play with it in the course of doing so. And Johnny, you want to add anything to this as well?
Yeah, we have the gifts of all of your presence here, and Michelle just shared something important in the chat, and I've asked Michelle if she might talk to it because, like Chris has said, we're not the experts. We're all becoming more knowledgeable, and Michelle brings some knowledge right now that we might want to understand a bit better. Michelle, would you be willing to tell us about what you've shared in the chat?
Oh, sure. Hi, everybody. Yeah, I was a part of those conversations in the STENT, the original STENT meeting where we talked about AI and how we were using it. And I was excited to see where it was going with you, Chris, when you kind of took it really in an awesome direction. So some of our colleagues at UCR, we've started, like a few of us have included this statement here for UCR. But aside from that, as a supervisor, the way I've used it is just really I take my observation notes and I put in, it's the prompt engineering, right, that matters. But I put, what the TPEs were, and then I asked ChatGPT to organize my observation notes. And they're just rough stream of conscious notes that I take during the observations. And I asked it to just organize it into the TPEs. And so that's basically how I've been giving my students their observation evaluations. And they basically they use those at the end when they do their IDPs. They can go back to their observation notes and kind of assess each of the different TPEs. I like the way that Chris was kind of using it, like more of tracking an individual candidate in their progress. And so that's how I plan on using it this year. But yeah, I think we're all pretty open to understanding how we're going to embrace it as a tool as opposed to fighting it. Because I just, you know, we're not going to be able to fight AI. It's going to be here. It's the Wikipedia of my days. We can't fight the Wikipedia or the Google. So we're trying to embrace it, and I think it's off to a great direction.
Thank you so much for sharing, Michelle.
Yeah, thank
I
you.
think
And this,
Chris is going to take us into what it
yeah,
looks like.
yeah, and we're here. We are. We're having this conversation. So here. These are some practical uses of AI in supervision. Uh, and this is from one of my candidates. And so what I did, and everybody's going to get a chance to do this as well, because we want to make this as interactive as possible. And if you have access, if you've gone to the resource folder, if you're on the slides, you'll be able to access each one of these links here. So what I did is I did observations of one candidate, and then I took my observation information that's in our UCI template, and I uploaded it into ChatGPT. That's right now, that is my AI tool of choice. And I know there's other apps out there, and if, as we go along, if you want to experiment with other ones, that's fine. And I was able to identify trends in this TPE's and this particular candidate's performance. And I found this incredibly helpful because um, it's very difficult. If I were to do this with just the documents themselves, I would have multiple screens open and it would just be too distracting. I could not synthesize this information at all. This was done in a matter of, it's just uploading, which I'll show people how I did that. I uploaded the information and uploaded the documents, and boom, there I had a report. So I found this highly effective because this is a conversation starter that I could have with my candidates, each one of them. Okay, let's see. Okay, if I can, actually I need to go back so I can. So if you would like to do this, we're at this point, we're going to give you, this is the right slide, Johnny, where we give them the time to, yeah, so.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so we're gonna give people a chance to actually do this. The links are, there's the ChatGPT link. So typically if I'm gonna click this to open it up, and this was my prompt right here, convert the observation data. So that's these 3 documents right here. Now there's multiple ways of doing this. This is the way that I do it. I'm gonna open up ChatGPT and I'm going to go to the prompt here, and I'm going to put that prompt right here, and I'm, let's see, convert the observation data into a progress report summary. Okay, there we go. Oh, I have a limit on my ChatGPT. I don't have an institutional account, so hopefully this will work. So I'm going to do this right here. And I'm going to take each one of these documents. What I do is I just click on the link, I open it up. And you could actually get the documents from the resource folder. So I'm going to go here, and I go to my Google Drive, and I will have these documents, and I'm going to use, this is our resource folder here, and I'm going to upload all 3 of these. And once they're uploaded, I can go ahead with the question. And here we go. And you can see how quickly it's done. This would take, I don't even know, I don't even want to guess how many hours this would take me to synthesize, but you can see it asks me if I want a downloaded format or tailored to specific valuation audience. I could do that. So what yes, go ahead, Johnny.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Can you go back to the prompt down at the bottom? Scroll,
Yes.
yeah. One thing you can do that's special is that after it's generated something, you can ask something about what's just been generated. So in this case, you could just write in, could you write a short paragraph summary
Right.
of what we've just written? And so you don't have to use the prompts over and over again. It will be using whatever's been generated, and it becomes the source. And so you get a simple paragraph. So there's lots of things you can do with whatever has been generated. Thank you for that, Chris.
Yes. So what we're going to give you an opportunity to do this. Trying to be aware of our time here. So basically you're accessing anyone. You could take 2 of the documents, type in your own prompt, and see what happens. So this is our sandbox time. And as you're doing this, if you could please put in the chat what you're finding.
And do ask questions either in the chat or
Yeah.
ask us if something needs to be made clear. Thank you, Michelle. That part we should have mentioned earlier. We do want to preserve privacy, so taking away any
Yeah.
kind of identifying information from an observation is important to do as well.
Okay. I know some people have some questions, so I'm going to go through the process again. So I'm going to go to slide 10. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the link to ChatGPT so I can open that up. So it gives you the link. And then if you can access, I would access the resource folders. That way you can grab all 3 of the evaluations. So I have ChatGPT open. And let me see if I can find our resource folders. Here we go. So I'm going to click. I have to put my prompt in. So you decide what slide 10, what prompt did you use to get it's on slide 10, Kumail.
One thing you do, Kamal, is to actually ask for a table. Could this be sorted in a table? I'm going to share some of that in a little bit with the exercise that I will have with you in a minute too.
Okay, so yeah, I apologize if it seems overwhelming because that's what it was. I went through that whole process too, how to copy the resources again. So I use slide 10, that's my jumping off point. And then I open up ChatGPT. I need to put a prompt in. So the prompt I used was, I could say, create a progress report for these evaluations.
Lorraine, a suggestion is just incremental use of your own. So one of the things that I know that Chris and I have done is that we would start with some observation data and we'd ask a question, a simple prompt like, can you make a summary of this? And you will get wonderful things. But as Michelle was saying earlier, this is about the prompts themselves. This is the part where we matter and how smart we are matters. So it's about what kinds of prompts you ask, set out for the work. So if you put in observations and you say something about, could you set out a list of strengths and needs improvements for these documents based on the California TPEs, that's a much more specific prompt, and you will get something very different. And what I know that Chris has done, I've just spent a lot of time just massaging the prompts. You change a word here, you change a word there, and you keep looking at the results as they change to see how you might refine and get to the thing that you really want to have for yourself.
And Lorraine, and besides Lorraine, I know there's a lot of people are coming into this like, well, okay, how do I go about doing this? And is there a step-by-step how to practice this? Yeah, if everybody can send me a PayPal for about $100 for the after the conference, no, I won't do that. But what I can do is I can create a video, just a screen video. It's I have to leave as soon as I'm done with this presentation, uh, but I can create a video and put it in the resource folder if you give me a couple days.
Well, you know, the other one, which is really ironic and strange, is you can ask AI what to do and how to get AI
Yes.
trainings. And that will be a curious thing. How can I learn more about AI? Ask ChatGPT.
Yeah. And so Johnny, I'm going to default back to, I'm going to start the presentation again, so
Please.
we could stay on our time frame.
All
So
right. Thank
some
you.
of you have, you're at that point now where you've just jumped in and you're swimming, and I'm sure you want to spend more time, and we've got you hooked, maybe on ChatGPT or some other area. But here are here are two of the areas that I used as well. So I analyzed the three observations and I used the rubric to highlight the areas of improvement and concern. Once again, you could see this is what it's giving, so that I could have a conversation with a candidate. And this was more than I could put together myself. And this was done in just probably 3 minutes. So now I could do this right after my observation and have this conversation with the candidate and saying, look, this is how you're progressing. And let's take a look at some of these areas where you might be able to make some improvements as well. Okay, well, that was our work session. So very quickly, because I want to make sure that Johnny gets his time as well. This was recommended by one of our STENT participants, and she said, I want to do this so that I can grow myself as a supervisor, which I found very, very powerful. So she was taking a look at what are the areas, when she does an observation, what are the areas that she maybe focuses on too much. And you could see this because when we go in, I know for myself, when I go in, I have some targeted areas, but I forget sometimes about those target areas because the teaching might veer off. And so I start focusing on something else. That's me, because that's from my experience. But this tells me, like, well, let's take a look, Chris. Now, this is what's been going on with you. You can, I've emphasized the high areas of TPE 7, 4, 3, and 1. And you can see the breakdown in TPEs 2, 5, TPE 6, we typically don't focus much on. So you can see how powerful this can be for the supervisor to take a look at their own work. And this is where the candidates come in. These are some examples of how we can work with candidates. I know I've had conversations with candidates say, I just spent 6 hours last night trying to create a lesson. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, and I could see in their face, they're just exhausted. So I recommend some of the ChatGPT, or there's Magic, AI Magic, and there's a few other platforms strictly for education. And it gives them some very good suggestions. Once again, it's obviously up to their own teaching and what they're trying to accomplish. It suggests technology integrations. And remember, these are suggestions too. But here's an example. One of my candidates was struggling with, he had a lot of EL students, and he was trying to give primary source documents to them and said, well, they're not going to understand them. And so we had a brief conversation, and he took this text, which was from the Declaration of Independence, and then used the Magic School AI platform to break down the text and then present it to the students so that they could utilize it at their level. Very, very powerful. And he made a lot of growth just by doing this. He says, oh my gosh, he says, they actually understand when they're reading. In comparison, if you're familiar with history books, there's a lot of the, especially older documents, that are difficult for adults to understand. So this is how it's used to create differentiated text.
Thank you, Chris.
Okay, Johnny.
All right. I'm going to take you into a very, very different path. So this past spring, I was thinking about TPEs, and I was thinking about developmental continuum that we've been using in our program for some time, and I thought how to make it better because it's really, really hard to manage the TPEs. One of the things about our supervisor PLC is we spent probably too much time talking about how awkward the TPEs are and how to manage them and how to account for them and where they should fit. And the first thing is that there are just too many of them. I think there's 56 discrete TPEs. And our job is not to be educational accountants. Our jobs are to be mentors. So how might we use the TPEs for our mentorship rather than as an accounting for our student teachers' progress? So one of the things about the TPEs, as you've all probably had experiences, that as you read them or try to make them available or present them to student teachers, they're kind of hard to understand. And they're often written for practicing teachers in a way that doesn't make good sense for a novice teacher. And so too often we end up focusing on checklist completion rather than developing teachers. So keeping all of that in mind, I set to work saying, okay, these TPEs, and I've done a lot of work on developing continua with the TPEs before, so I know them pretty well. But what might this tool do to help me make something that was much, much better? So I'm going to go through what I have right now, and then I'm going to ask you to work on making your own. I'll give you some tools and some direction to really own the TPEs for yourselves. So if we can go to the next slide, Chris.
Mhm.
So this is where I've come to with the TPEs, and this is what I have is I have the 7 TPEs. One of the things that came up for our program last year is that TPE 7 is new, and we're wrestling with it. And we had some awkward conversations about how does it fit in our program because it's so new. AI doesn't complain. ChatGPT didn't complain, so it's folded in here. As you can see in this form of the continuum, if you look next piece, please, next page. The first thing I did was I rewrote the prompts to be student friendly, not just here's how you complete the program. This is about what they should understand. So this is I purposely wrote in my prompt, the audience is a beginning student teacher. What kinds of things do they need to think about in terms of learning environment based on the TPEs? And you can see it's very clear. This involves establishing consistent routines, positive behavior systems, and clear expectations that support student independence and collaboration. You notice it's written as a directive. You must be able to organize. Okay. Classroom should be a place where every student feels seen and valued. So very, very clear and very written for student teachers. The other piece to this, I want you to hold on to this one because this is very important because I think this is one of the things we struggle with. This same language is absolutely accessible to the mentor teachers, to the cooperating teachers, so that you can imagine this kind of continuum with this kind of language being the language that's taken by the student teachers and the language used by the mentor teachers in their shared work together. It's very plain. It's not convoluted. It's not awkward. It's not abstract in the way that TPEs are. It's very, very accessible. So I did that on purpose. Next slide, please. The next part you'll see is that I wrote it out as a continuum. And I was very plain in what beginning, intermediate, and advanced activities should be. The things that I wanted to make happen very plainly were these are things that we could expect a beginning teacher to be involved in the first few months in beginning. In the middle of the year, usually our winter quarter, January, February, March, intermediate kinds of things, and advanced ideas being what they might be able to do at the end of their program. The way that the TPEs are written as in the way that they're set, it's not clear. It's just here is what you should be doing. There's no roadmap, there's no guide, there's no steps along the way. So in this form, it's all about do these things as a beginner, move towards these things as intermediate teacher, and then try to move towards the advanced ones. And I'm going to hold this as a rubric. If you were to use this and look at the intermediate expectations, if your student teachers can do those things, they're awesome. But it's always good to be holding out the things that are real reaches. So you can see that in the advanced column. Now the part, if you can click to the next one, I think, Chris.
Mhm.
The last piece, so important, is that for each of the TPEs domains, I worked to set out questions. And the questions are meant for us, or for me, is as the key to the conversations we have. So when I'm visiting a student teacher and I'm asking about any particular thing, each one of the domains has a set of questions that can guide that supervisorial discussion, the feedback discussion. These also are the questions that can be set out for the TPE conference. So at the end of every quarter or so, we meet with our student teachers, and you can imagine this is the same document being used by the mentor teachers. They're using these same questions too. So that whole triumvirate, the three-legged stool, the student teacher, the mentor teacher, and the supervisor are all working from a common set of questions that are very, very centered, very, very grounded in teaching practice. So I want to make sure that that's understood too. The reframing for me of the TPEs was, what does this look like in practice? How are these observable? What do people actually do? Because sometimes the TPEs are a bit abstract, like these would be great things to be doing, but I know you probably have this experience too. It's hard to see in the actual practice of a beginning teacher. They've got a lot to do. And it's good to have things that are very actually tangible for student teachers to be working from. So if you go to the next slide, please. Okay, so you get to play with this. And Chris, I'm going to ask you just in a moment to open up that URL at the top in a separate slide. But this URL is for all of you, and I want to read it out so you know what it is.
Sorry.
You can go back.
Mhm.
So if you look at this URL right now, https://tinyurl.com, the slash after is AI TPEs, okay? And if some of you could just put yes, I have it in the chat, that would help me know that you found it. And Chris, if you could bring up that page, that would be wonderful. So if you could drop out a slideshow and then we go to
Yeah.
that link.
Okay.
Thank you for putting the yeses down. I've given you a gift at the top of the page. You'll see a link. Everything that I've made, I've just shared with you. You can have it. So essentially, I'm going to go through how I made it, which means you can make your own better. And if we could get to that page, Chris, that would be good.
Yeah, I'm working.
Thank you.
There it is.
Oh, good. Thank you, Kamal, for putting that up. See it in the link as well. So in the chat, there's a link as well, Chris.
Okay. Yeah, because I've got the full screen and I'm working off just one screen here.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Kamal.
So while you're looking at it, what you'll see at the top is, thank you for putting a link for everybody in the chat, Chris. As I said, I've given you a gift to take a look at it, but I've also given you some things to think about for yourself. What you will see is at the top, I've given you links to 3 AI tools. I've started with Gemini, I've given you ChatGPT, and I've given you Copilot. Gemini and Copilot, I don't think charge. The other thing that I've given you is the prompt. If you take a look at the prompt, and Michelle, you'll get this. You know how many hours it took me to get to this particular prompt, okay? And this prompt is the prompt, a version of the prompt I used to make that table that you see. And so, as Michelle shared with you, it's like the work that you do to make the prompt. You can see that I was very particular about the kind of language. I was very particular about beginning, intermediate, and advanced. I was very particular about the language being appropriate for folks. And what I'd like you to do right now, and I see lots of people staring at their screens, if you could explore with that a bit, okay? And I will try to get that screen up for us to share as well.
Yeah.
Maybe I should be doing that. Thank you.
I'll take care of it.
Okay. Thank you, Chris.
Mhm.
There we go. And you also notice that I wrote set out a table. And that really does make it happen. And you can see I actually said what format to set it out in. You'll probably find that ChatGPT sets it out in a format better than the other two. But all of that is text you can manipulate and use to make whatever you want to make. You're the boss of it now. And that's one of the things about AI is it's augmenting our work. We're still the boss. But as I shared earlier, whatever result you get, at the bottom afterwards, ask some questions about it. So they've given, the AI is giving you this set of things about that might be useful for your beginning teacher. Ask some questions about it. I wrote down what questions should a beginning teacher give attention to in the first month of their practical work? And all of a sudden you have a little guide for your beginning teacher to have some things to focus on. And the other question I suggest is what should a mentor give best attention to in the first months of working with a student teacher? And if you want to share anything in chat, I'm going to be quiet for a minute or two, and then we should have a little talk about this, if that's all right. Yeah, thank you, Michelle, because I do pay
Yes.
for ChatGPT. So the difference, Kamal, between the way Chris went about working with the AI, I usually just use prompts. And what I'll do is I'll copy and paste text from my documents as I need instead of uploading whole docs. Um, I'll give you another funny thing. This is just an aside. All the images in our slideshow today
Mm.
came from ChatGPT.
And Kamal, to answer that question, to add to that, when Johnny does the copy and paste, uh, he's putting in information. When I have those templates for my assessments, when I upload them, I have to make sure I take out the student data. Or I don't, let's say I want to look at one particular candidate. When I upload it, that information, if the data is already in there, that's where this whole privacy question comes up. So there's two different ways of doing it. I use the documents, the ones that I'm using, as you can see, there's no names on them at all. But when I actually doing in the work itself, I just upload everything. And Najin,
Shall we come to that question after a minute
yeah,
too? We have a questions time, and Najim, we'll start with your question if that's all right.
Sure, thank
Um,
you.
I think Copilot will do images as well.
Can
I think we've lost
I
people,
ask a
Chris.
follow-up question to
Please,
sorry, it's Komal.
Como, I'm sorry if we mispronounced your name.
Oh, that's okay, no worries. When you say you take out the student's name, do you just go through the document and delete, like just
actually, when I did it, I created another document and deleted the name. But
okay.
when I'm doing it in real time, I do not, because I'm trying to expedite my work. So yes, so that now that I guess if I were to type in chat GPT, tell me about this person's teaching experience, who knows, I might get an answer because I've uploaded their name.
And you can do a find and replace to
Mhm.
take out names as well.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Como. Michelle, please.
I was just going to share to that point is that there's something in the settings that you can turn off on ChatGPT so that because it's a training model, so it's using all the data that we put in as part of training the model, and so you can turn off contributing to that data. And
Yeah.
so that just kind of keeps all of your, just keeps everything institutionally that you're kind of sharing with the model just
Right.
for you.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
So, Chris, is it about time to go to talk and questions and things? Or?
Yes. Yes. Perfect timing.
Okay. So we're going to open this up now. And Najin, we'd like to start with your questions, but also a couple thoughts. Either questions about the use, ethical questions, what's questionable about the use of AI, some revelations some people have had, and in particular, if there's anything from either of the activities you've done, either with Chris or with the thing that I set out that you found interest in or a surprise in, that would be worthwhile sharing as well. So if we could put hands up, that would be great. And I know some folks are going to be lost and happy exploring as well. That's fine too. We set that up, so we own that. So if anybody would like to start, and Ajin, would you like to start with your question, please?
Sure. I was just wondering because I've had student teachers who've asked about the use of AI on like the part of their students and how to combat the unethical use of AI by their students in terms of like plagiarism and things like that. And I was just wondering what advice you would give them.
I will start, but I'm sure there are more knowledgeable people than me on this, especially folks who work in secondary around English and such.
Yeah.
I know that my brother, the English teacher, they're using particular tools now. One of them is, especially for writing, is that they keep track of actual writing. There are some kinds of tools that will look and see time spent in writing things. There's some kind of model for that as well. And they do have, unfortunately, just like with the plagiarism, they do have filters now to see whether things are AI generated or not. One of the things my brother does as an English teacher, he's very much about drafts. And AI doesn't give drafts. So I suppose you could have AI make fake drafts for you as well, but it's very much about process rather than product. And if others could share on this too, and I'm going to also say, Najin, I think that we're in a brand new planet, and we're figuring this out. I don't know that it's been understood yet. So please, there's a
If I
hand
could, yeah.
raised, and Najin, please let us know if we should continue on this question
Yeah,
too.
thank you. No, I like the process versus product thing that you mentioned. That's a good one.
But thank you so much. I don't know your name, but you have a number 00160.
Yes, that's me. I'm Robin, and I just wanted to add, as is usually the case, I learn from my student teachers, and I had a rude awakening when a resident teacher called and said, "This is unacceptable. Your student has generated from ChatGPT video questions that are horrible." So that was a real awakening. But it was a really valuable experience. So next semester in August, in a few weeks, as part of the conversation with each resident teacher, I'm just going to say, so what is your AI policy? What's your tech policy? I want to work with you, and I want us to be all together on this. And the same conversation. So yes, I'm adding something to my syllabus that says, now, I just took a wonderful course about AI. Going in, my attitude was, I don't want them to use AI during the first 2 or 3 observations. After I saw all the incredible stuff that AI does, I totally changed. And my attitude is just tell me how you used it. So send me a paragraph in when you send your lesson plan a few days before, just tell me all the ways you used AI and what you used, and run it by your resident teacher, and you are all good. This is how we cite the sources. This is because I don't want to battle with them. I want to learn it with them because honestly, they're way ahead of me. All right.
Well, I want to take that first thing about AI generating bad prompts or bad questions. That's still about teaching. I mean, the person could have written bad video questions on their own. They just used ChatGPT to write bad video questions. So it's going to be about the kinds of prompts they use and their understanding of what makes a worthwhile video question too. So that still comes to our work about preparing them around curriculum. What are worthwhile questions to guide students through a video? And they have to know that, not just blithely go into ChatGPT and expect it to do the work. The work is still ours to understand the teaching that goes into whatever we ask it to do. Appreciate this very much, Robin.
Absolutely. And I'll just add, that's where the conversation comes in. So the three of us talked about why she did it. And her response was, I already spent an hour just watching the video. I don't have all the time in the world.
Oh,
So we could talk about her time situation and her life situation, which is the humanizing part. And yes, you're right. We talked about, no, you need to learn how to generate your own questions. So yes, we're together.
thank you so much for that, Robin.
And if I could add to that, I think it's important that teachers also examine their assignments too. As Johnny said, we're in the wild, wild west, and there's a lot of work that can be, students can replicate so quickly on AI. So we have to look at the meaningfulness of the assignments. Is it something that AI can answer? And if it is, well, let's examine the answer, maybe do side-by-side examination of it. And we have to obviously work with our candidates as well. And because they do encounter that, okay, somebody submitted an AI generated response. And so I like to go back to the learning experience. Like, let's put this up. And in history, the AI platform it's really good because you can look at resources and compare that to an actual document. But the question of why they're using it has to be examined instead of the typical response from many educators, like, oh, I'm going to punish them. Well, let's make this a learning experience. And I think that's imperative.
I also want to attach the idea, attach to this, that we're teachers, we're developing teachers, and we own that practice. The tool is not going to replace that practice, even though people might imagine it with AI in some ways. There's, you might think of this as just another of the wonder tools. In the 50s, it was an overhead projector. Then it became television. Then it became VHS tapes. And then it was going to be a computer for every kid. And all those shape things, but none of those shape things in ways that matter unless there's a really good teacher who's set up the right things to be doing and the right questions to be guiding. And so that's still the place we have with our beginning teachers in regards to this new technology too. So I'm going to ask, we have just a few minutes. Does anyone have a good hard question for us, a critical question? We don't need to be in awe of all of this. We do have to think about things as real, as things come up and what we're going to be doing with this. Or if anybody else just has a revelation about something, either with the TPE continuum that I shared or something else in the exploration of these last few minutes.
I don't know how to raise my hand in this, so can I just talk? Is that
Please,
possible? Okay.
please,
I
please.
guess on the trying not to do a negative, but to look at the quote unquote punitive side, how would we counteract the non-effective use of ChatGPT? I guess what do we know at this point that will help us to guide it into a teachable thing at all
Okay, good,
times?
good. Can I ask your first name? I apologize.
My name is Shane.
Okay, Shana. So one of the things that comes up, and this is, people have been talking about this, I saw some report on this recently, is um, the assumption that we can stop thinking about things as we use the tools, that the tools will do those things. So I'm going to say this, and again, thank you, Michelle. When I was working on the TPE continuum, some of my prompts gave me things that were just like, nah, so.
Right.
And I could have just taken that and said, well, ChatGPT says it's so. And it's got a lot going on here, but I still had to use my judgment and I still had to work and be the smart one to do that. And I'm going back to earlier question from Eugene too, just that for our students as learners as well, the assumption that this thing's going to do it for me.
Right.
Robin's question, I've watched a video for an hour. I don't have time to write the questions. Well, if the questions are what's going to happen for your teaching, it's not going to matter that you watched it for an hour if you have lousy questions. So
Correct.
it's still about us.
Mhm.
It's still about judgment. And if there's anything we can give to our student teachers, that's it. It's like what you're learning in our programs is to set you up to be the one who makes good things happen for our for students. And
Right.
you have to own that judgment. You have to own your knowledge and all those good things too. I'm preaching. I'm sorry.
No, I actually agree. This has been very insightful. I actually don't see it in a negative way. I do see how it can be negatively used. But as long as we're counteracting and using the judgment correctly, like you're saying, I think it is a very wonderful tool. Yeah.
Have you had some experiences with it in an awkward
I
way?
have not. This was my experience right now. This has been fun. So
Okay,
rather
good.
engaging. Yeah. And you can use it, I'm sure, in a lot of other ways, but I really liked, I didn't look at the magic school, that's what I put in my head. Sorry, magic school
Yeah,
bus.
yeah,
The
yeah.
magic AI, I'm interested in looking at that in a different perspective for the younger ages as well, so that obviously we're at a collegiate level, but if it would be useful and beneficial to the students in their actual practices, I think that would be cool
Wonderful.
to look at too. Thank
Peter
you.
Thank you
has
so
a
much for
question.
contributing. We have a
Peter,
couple more folks and
yeah.
then we'll need to close. Peter, would you like to start? And then Julie?
Just want to, commend you for giving us insight into AI. It's very interesting to me that I work with English and social studies teachers, and my English teachers see AI as anathema, and my social studies teachers love it
Oh,
because
wow.
it's research based. Very interesting. I've seen more of my English teachers who are buying 69-cent pads of paper and giving kids the option of their favorite pen or pencil and
Oh,
write. And I commend them for that. But I do want to just note the New York Times has weighed in on this very recently in May. And I quote the article, "The professors are using ChatGPT and some students
I
are
remember that.
about it. Students call it hypocritical. A senior at Northeastern University demanded her tuition back, but instructors say generative AI tools make them better at their jobs. And to me, when I look at AI, I see it in the context of how and I'm going to take Christian's baseball analogy. We have had great controversy over whether umpires can call balls and strikes. And I'm one who loves the whole idea of just the umpire behind there calling balls and strikes, however misguided. But I see AI in a very similar vein, and I'm still open to it. But I am finding that my students are asking more and more questions about the concept of what is honest and what is honest and how do I present that to my students. And I also teach courses, and I'm asked that question when I give a writing assignment, where does AI fit? So there are a lot of questions I have, but I appreciate the insights you've given me because you've given me a lot to think about. And I don't necessarily concur that I'm going to be an AI advocate in the future.
Good, good. Thank you, Peter. Julie, please.
My question was more of like for the universities and their communication with the school districts that our student teachers are working in, because they could each have different policies, and we don't want to put our student teachers in an awkward position, with coming in blindly and trying to do what's right or helpful to them, but then breaking the policies of the various school districts. So I'm wondering if there's that communication piece between the universities and the school districts where the student teachers are placed.
It seems like
excellent
I'm going to say, and anybody else can add to this, that this is one of those new places we're thinking about, and that it's not a question we've had before, and we will have to think about this. What expectations do schools have for teachers' use of AI in their teaching? As Peter was sharing, that article in the New York Times, some professors somewhere essentially had AI generate a course, which students were paying thousands of dollars for. It's like, what is that about? So lots and lots of things to think about. Thank you for
Julie,
that good question, Julie. Yes, please.
I actually am a liaison. So from my standpoint on the liaison side, I do two things. I do the student teaching side and the other side. But when I'm communicating to districts, I do make it a point to make sure that the most current CTC requirements are embedded. And if they can't meet that, obviously I don't want to send my students there in the first place. And we make sure that it's as nice as possible because, you want to make sure that you keep those partnerships with those districts. So I think ensuring that you're communicating that at the very get-go before the even placement is made is one aspect. The other aspect is once the placement is made, I also communicate with the mentor side and then I say, hey, these are what we're looking for based on the CTC mandates, and can you adhere to this? And if it can't be, I want to make sure I'm handling that situation before the student's even there. So, and then again, at the student, let's say the student gets into it and maybe that they were incorrect. The supervisor starts to go in there and communicate the same information, and then we figure out how to handle it accordingly at that time as well. So there's a lot of checkpoints along the way to make sure that this is being implemented.
Thank
I'm
you so much.
sorry if I
No, it's good. Chris and I should close now.
Yeah.
I'm going to stick around for a couple minutes still, if Chris wants to as well, just if anybody wants to check in with us for a few minutes. We just stepped into, we're putting our toes in the water today, and hopefully you've got your toes wet as well. Chris, thank you so much for sharing this with me.
And the resources we have on the slides, there are resources there that you can access. Some of them are recent articles on AI, and some of them are just for educators, various platforms that can be used. So thank you, and definitely thank you everybody for your questions and input. As Johnnie and I, we began playing in this sandbox probably about 5 or 6 months ago, and so we continue to play.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you all, and enjoy the next session.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Michelle, for sharing so much. That was very helpful. She's gone on.
Well, thank you, everybody. I'm going to go to the next session.
Okay.
The meeting, I'll make sure the meeting continues.
All right.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Johnnie. I've got
Thank
to
you, Chris.
jump out here and hit the
I'm glad it
road.
went well.
Yeah, we'll stay in touch.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Anybody have a question for us? Because I'm going to be leaving as well. Thank you all.